If you are like me, then let's just take a moment and do a mid-year audit. We'll pause to reflect and not necessarily to produce, not to perform, just to reflect. This is Matthew Brown, and this is the Undercurrent. I know that our setup looks a little different simply because I wanted to spend some time with you to talk through what June may mean to you. Well, June has significance for me because it's my birth month. It is the mid-year. Summer is coming and seasons are changing. And for me, specifically this year and this season has been a little tough. It's been challenging, it's been exciting, it's been active, it's been purposeful, but it has definitely been necessary. Then let's just take a moment and do a mid-year audit. How did you start January and where are you now in this month of June? What does life look like? How are you? How are you mentally? How are you physically? How are you emotionally? How are you spiritually? Because I think we have a tendency, at least I do, of moving on to the next thing without stopping to do deep reflection and a moment of appreciation, and in most cases, some celebration. We don't know how to really celebrate ourselves because we're so used to moving forward with the next thing. Today, I want to talk to you about what is it that we may need to fix. And then I'm really thinking about how do we together look at making mid-year corrections or course corrections. You know, we've been talking a lot about drifting. We've talked about the streamline trap. We talked about the issues of clarity and why clarity is so important. But I think in this 6 month, I think that what's necessary for us to do is to really look at how we can take a mid-year audit and mirror some things and take a look and put that mirror right up to our face and say, okay, you're at June. What you said in January, how close are you to those goals? Have those goals or priorities shifted? And if that is the case, then what are you going to do about it? I wanted to talk to you. And so we're just in a different format, in a different space. And I hope that you'll hear my heart because I'm not only just talking about the undercurrent and talking about the need to do a mid-year audit, I'm also doing some deep reflection. So I'm going to model what I expect you to do as well. And I want to encourage you as one of these steps is to take some time to reflect. Look deeply in the things that you are connected to. Look deeply into the people that are connected to you. Look deeply in asking yourself purpose questions. Does your purpose circle need to change? Do you need a different geographical? Do you need a different career change? Do you need a different language? Do you need a different conversation? What is necessary for you to continue to move? I want to believe that if you are moving forward, you, like cars, will need to move to the shop, to go to the shop and get an alignment. No matter how well your car is performing, the the miles on the road, on the tires, the stress on the engine. Yes, the oil change, but there's some other fluids that are going to need to change. You may need a different belt. You may need a filter. Whatever that looks like, it is an alignment so that you can continue to achieve. If you're achieving and you've hit all of your 6 month goals and you're on pace, then let me celebrate you. Even if you won't stop, let me stop and celebrate you for the things that you have accomplished. I want to say job well done. I want to tell you that you are on a great road and you have added to your tool belt understanding various different challenges and changes that are necessary as you continue to progress. You know, often when I'm doing conversations that sound like counseling for couples and groups, particularly for couples, I have a formula about checking in. And the check in is that the couple must set a time and a date, right, with their cell phones off and it's on their calendar, and they simply sit in whatever room they choose, but they're having a deliberate conversation about their relationship. And I talk about this check ins, asking three fundamental questions that the husband will ask to the wife and the wife will ask to the husband with these rules. You must listen. You must hear the whole thing out. You can't interrupt mid sentence. And you have to actively listen. You have to listen to what a person is saying and not what you are hearing, right? So you have to set your hearing to their speaking. And the three questions that are asked is this. As a husband, the husband would say, how am I doing as your man? How am I doing as your husband? How am I doing as a father? And asking the question, now you sit and you hear feedback. It's check in. Because I believe that if we would simply do more check ins, we would have less confrontations and blow ups and breakups and heartaches and heartbreaks because we have paused to see how are things going. So let's try our check in. You have to ask yourself tough questions. How am I aligned to the goals in which I set out in January? What personal goal did I have? And I started well, but something derailed me. What measure of clarity do I need to achieve and to occupy so that I can achieve my goals and my desires for the rest of the year? What does June look like? What does it mean to you that you're at a halfway point of the year? Now, if you're like most of us, we looked up and said, wait a minute, how did June get here so fast? We were just in January. And I agree with you. But we have to ask reflective questions like, what have I learned about myself so far this year? What have you learned? Let me share what I've learned about me. I have learned that for the majority of my life, I have always put other people ahead of me. And I'm probably no different than you are. But now I'm beginning to see whether or not the return on the investment was worth the investment. It doesn't mean that that's a value of people. It's just what have I learned about me? And then how can I reinvest in my own life with the same intentionality, the same vigor, the same excitement as I have for others? So, what have you learned about yourself so far this year? And what are you willing to change? Um, what have you been avoiding? What have you been avoiding that now needs your attention? I will tell you that in our professional space, in our career space, sometimes we have a tendency to avoid what we may think is problematic simply because we are calculating that maybe going along is better than stopping, realigning, rotating the tires, changing the oil, and even letting some people off at this stop, right? Because you have to determine where is it that you ultimately want to wind up. Then what area of your life feels like it's drifting? Like, you're moving, but you're drifting. And why are you drifting? What part of you did you give up that would cause that level of drift? I often talk about how do we redefine our progress? How do we do that? One of the ways that I think that I am making mid-course corrections is this thing that I have in my head. The thing that I have in my head is that sometimes in my prayer time, I will hear either my conscious voice, however you ascribe to your faith, a higher power. For me, I believe it is the conviction of the Holy Spirit. Now, that's how I take it. But I hear that the you that you're being is not the you that was formed. The you that you're being is because you've become that because somewhere you have allowed life and other circumstances to frame you. So um, I hear the internal struggle. I hear the you that is calling me powerfully struggle against the you that has settled for what this is. And I promise you, you are not built to settle. You're not built to stay where you are. So think about those reflective questions. Take a moment and see where you are. Where have you been consistent, even if the results haven't shown so? Well, one of the things I would tell you is I've been on a weight loss journey for about a year now, a year and a half. And so I've been able to max right now at around a 42-pound weight loss inside of maybe, I would say, 12 to 13 months. So it's not rapid weight loss. It is changing the way I see it, but it is also coming face to face with the drug of choice for me, which is food, right? And so taking the power away from a thing that is not necessarily my friend. So it has been convenient. It is always around. It has been faithful in its attendance, but it has not been good for me. So you have to ask yourself, where have you been consistent? So I've been consistent with thinking and being, right, more healthy, you know, um, smaller portions, intermittent fasting, things that work for me, right? And so these things are working. And so I have a goal for the next 6 months to uh, add on, add on more consistent workout in the gym, to tone muscle. So whatever that is, but will you please make sure that your 6 months includes something that is going to be super powerful for you, things that you love? Then the question is, what else do you need to change? What do you need to change to finish this year more aligned than the way you started? What where are you misaligned? This is the mid-year audit. This is how do we take a look? How do we put a mirror in front of ourselves and say, "Hey, how you doing?" So I want you to take a deeper look. I want you to take a deeper look at your quiet growth. I pinned a thing about a prayer that I wrote. God, I want you to, you know, eh, there's some prayers that I don't need to pray out loud, but I need you to hear those silent screams and those questions, right? So that they get your attention without an audience. You can grow quietly. You can grow methodically. You can get to a place of clarity, and clarity is more important than the outcome. A lot of times we're so driven about getting to an outcome that we haven't stopped to. And when we're at the outcome, the destination, we are more confused than ever because we're still trying to figure out how we got there because we're so focused on the destination, not the journey. We're so focused on the results and not the clarity. So, might I invite you in this month of June to take a moment, take a beat, pause, and get clarity about what's next. Get clarity about who's in your life and why are they there. Get clarity to see whether or not, everything has a season, a reason, or it's a lifetime. You've got to figure out whether grace has been lifted for the way that you've been being. Is that grace up for you? Or is that grace up for that thing that you were doing? And so I want to say to you that you've got to ask what version of me needs to lead the second half of this year. Is it the intentional version? Is it the version of me that wants clarity with the steps? Is it the transactional version that will just simply get the things done? Or is it the purposeful version of yourself that wants to walk in clarity, peace, and ultimately experience transformation? So mid-year isn't a deadline. It's just a month, right? But it's a doorway so that we can see how we will move further. I'm Matthew Brown, and this is The Undercurrent.